everyone. As you know, I'm Sistah Scifi, CEO and founder of Sistah Scifi. And today is Wednesday, so you know I'm out here in the streets working hard to make Wednesday your new favorite day of the week. So let me know how you're doing in the chat. The theme of this week's Sistah Scifi is Space Sisters. I'm really excited. We have Angela Dalton. Angela, hey, I see you. We have Breanna McDaniel, and we have Dr. Sian Proctor, who is the first. Yes, and we'll do introductions before I mess. You know, in the chat how your week has been. My week has been good and interesting. Yeah. Hey, Angela. Oh, also got the top knot. You got. Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I am so excited for today's discussion. I am such a fan of Dr. Proctor. I'm so excited. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for saying yes. I'm excited too. I'm excited too. While we wait for Dr. Proctor, who I know sent me a message and is like, I'm online, where are you? So like they're coming. She's coming. How's your week been?
Oh, that's a good question. So far, it's good. I've been looking forward to this meeting. So this Instagram live. So I'm like, wait, my brain just went. It's been good. When I tell you I'm going to geek out, I'm going to geek out. It's been good. You know, I mean, it's been so nice. As you know, we have had nothing but rain. So to have some sunshine has been great. So I'm good. Thank you.
Hey, Dr. Sian Proctor, hi, how are you?
Hi,
we're so excited. Good. So I'm just like, there have been really several amazing, cool people on Sistah Scifi Wednesday. I'm not going to pick any favorites, but I'm just like, I'm trying hard not to like be too extra right now. So I'm so happy you said yes. I'm so happy you're here.
It's okay. Dr. Proctor is the star of the show.
No,
it's okay.
Definitely not.
It's good to see you again.
It's good to see you too.
How have you been?
I've been doing okay, traveling a lot. I'm in Texas at Starbase area. I'm going to give a talk at SpaceX Starbase tomorrow.
Yay!
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. Going to share some of my art and poetry with them.
Oh, how cool is that?
Yeah.
I hope you'll share some with us tonight, too.
I'm prepared.
I don't know if you know this or not, but Dr. Proctor and I were invited to the inaugural speaker series of Nichelle Nichols Foundation back in January.
Yeah, it was really great.
It's so cool.
Yeah, it was a great time. Great discussion. So I'm excited to continue and learn, like, hear more of what you've been doing since then.
Oh, yeah, me too. You too. I imagine you're traveling a lot, talking about the book and everything.
Yeah, but nothing as cool as what you've been doing.
I don't know. I think it's all cool.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, no, it's been great. It's been so wonderful. So yeah, we'll get to share tonight.
Yay! And the gang is all here. So perfect. So let's do a round of introductions. Whoever wants to start first, will start first. Yeah.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Sian Proctor, and I was the mission pilot for Inspiration 4, the first all-civilian mission to orbit. I went to space with SpaceX in September of 2021, and I was the mission pilot, and I became the first African-American woman to pilot a spacecraft, the first African-American commercial pilot, and the first African-American to paint in space.
Oh, that's a fun one.
And I won my space as an artist and a poet.
Yay, love that introduction.
Although, so it looks like Breanna just took a sip. My name is Angela Dalton, and I am the author of To Boldly Go, How Nichelle Nichols and Star Trek Helped to Advance Civil Rights. I've been on here a few times. Thank you for having me again, Isis. This is great. I'm so excited to be in conversation with you all.
Yay.
And I am Breanna McDaniel. Breanna J. McDaniel. I'm a recovering academic and a rabid reader. This is my book, Impossible Moon, which is it's a little bit of a story about me and my grandmother, but definitely about me and the astronomer that I wanted to be one day. It's a little girl named Mabel who travels through the moon and has a lot of adventures with some constellations. And that is my second book. I have two more books away next year. One is called Cute Toot, about two sisters who have a farting contest. And then there is a book about Augusta Baker, who is who was an incredible Black librarian in New York City.
Yay! Here's librarians. So there's so many ways this can go, but let's start with the reason why I curate it this way is that, like, I love to think about how science fiction and representation there creates our realities, right? So we have Angela and Breanna who write, I consider like write in the realm of science fiction. And then we have Dr. Proctor, who's like actually doing this stuff in real life and is also like an artist and a poet. So if you could tell me about examples of when each of y'all saw or created something in an artistic realm and how that influenced how you moved in reality, I think that would be really exciting for me personally and the people in cyberspace.
I don't know who wants to go first on that.
So wait, repeat the question again. So the piece of art that, repeat it again. I'm sorry. It's like I said, I'm geeking out this whole time.
It's a long question. So let me, as opposed to repeating the question, so a good example is many people were inspired by the life and work of Nichelle Nichols, as you highlight in your book, To Boldly Go, right? Do y'all have any similar examples in your life on either side in terms of creativity or actual science stuff?
Well, I mean, I think that for me, I became an artist and a poet during the middle of COVID, and started doing poetry, but I didn't, but I had been chasing space my entire life. I was a finalist for the 2009 NASA astronaut selection process and got down to that yes/no phone call, and it was that heartbreaking no, and you don't give up hope, but you continue forward, and then opportunity came for me to be able to win a contest of space with Inspiration 4, and I decided to do it as an artist and a poet instead of as a scientist, a geoscientist, which is what I am by training. And so I wrote a poem called Space to Inspire as my entry into, and then I won. So poetry won, the concepts and the ideas that I expressed in this poem resonated with the Twitter audience and the judges, because it was a contest that was judged by some pretty high profile individuals, and then it got selected as a result of that. And so I kind of like to think of how using that literary medium to be able to express, I found my authentic voice through the poetry, and I was able to express concepts and ideas that really resonated with people, but it also has meaning in the real world and translate it to me being able to go on this journey, but also this idea of what I call creating a Jedi space, a just, equitable, diverse, and inclusive space, which goes back to Nichelle Nichols and her mission, and a lot of that Star Trek theme. So it may be a Star Wars metaphor, but it's definitely a Star Trek, heart and soul.
I love it. I love that. There's so much I could respond to, but I definitely want to give space to Angela and Breanna to respond and also some notes, share their examples.
Yeah, I think Virginia Hamilton was one of the first experiences that I had thinking about fantasy and involving Black people in fantasy and fables and folklore. And I have talked before about how I was taking an AP physics class, and the teacher's name they called him Killer Keller because he was like, no A's, if you get a B in this class. And I remember him telling me, and I wanted to be an astronomer because I had all of these ideas. I read A Wrinkle in Time a million times. I was reading a lot of Virginia Hamilton, reading a lot of um, stories about outer space, and I thought, okay, well, I have to be a Black girl who gets to the moon one day. Pardon me. And so I found that path through astronomy and as an astronomer. And I had a professor, though, our teacher who told me, you'll pass this AP physics class, but you're not going to pass the AP physics test. And so for me, that kind of just stopped my dreams. And he was right. Unfortunately, that wasn't, and I'm sure he couldn't have imagined that, however many years later I would have my PhD in education and I would have found a way to get a Black girl to the moon anyway through Impossible Moon. But I did. But I am really excited to be here because also I feel like some of what we're talking about here is what space represents when it comes to possibilities for Black girls. And I wrote this poem called I Imagine Grief and Healing for Black Girls. And the whole point of the poem is that when Black girls grieve and come together, if they do it in a space outside of this world, time freezes, it pauses, and we get to kiki and we get to cry and we get to talk about napping and how important that is. And we get to talk about root beer floats, and you have elders and you have itty bitties and everybody's there. And that is what I imagine when I imagine grief and healing for Black girls. So I think it's just exciting that, outer space is not as far as we think it is because we create some of that space for ourselves, even in this plane that we inhabit here. I mean, but we have someone here who's actually been in outer space, so that's so cool.
But I think you're absolutely right about, my motto is space to inspire, and it's not about outer space, it's about the space that we inhabit and how we can use that to inspire ourselves and those around us.
Yeah, and I love all of that. I think for me, I'm like listening to you both, and I'm just like, wow, because mine came from comic books and watching cartoons. Like, I watched Voltron as a kid. I watched a lot of Japanese animation. And so for me with comic books, what I loved about it, because kind of to Breanna's point, like, there weren't a lot of space, even sci-fi and fantasy books where I could find somebody who looked like myself, but I felt like comic books kind of opened up the world of like anything was possible. And so there weren't, limitations, and like seeing beyond, the world that we live on, this planet, this earth, this marble, like, but there were other things outside that were bigger than us. And so it really got me to thinking as a young kid of like, what are the possibilities that people aren't even taking into consideration that could be real? And that could also be in the realm of me being a Black girl, moving in a way that was different and wasn't expected and wasn't an obligation of how I was supposed to be in my Blackness. And so for me, it was like comic books really just kind of opened my world into all of these possibilities of what could be, what can be, and what I want them to be. I would say it was a combination of that being an art piece, but also for me, it was my great-grandmother. She instilled into me the idea, and this is also something that you know, ancestrally for Black people, the sky has just given us so much. Constellations were used, as we know, during, you know, Harriet Tubman, of trying to guide slaves through the Underground Railroad of how to free themselves. And so, like, from my great-grandmother, she always said the sky is what can help you ground yourself whenever you're feeling scared, whenever you're feeling afraid or mad or angry or whatever. It's actually the basis for my first book, which was If You Look Up to the Sky. And, you know, like her reminding me that if you look up to the sky and you feel scared, just know if you see the moon peeking over you, it's watching over you, and you're close to people who love you. And so that was the base that I always wanted Black girls especially to know, that we can connect with each other. If we look to the sky, we see the same moons, we see the same stars, and we can, you know, pray and support each other in that way. So that's what I love about, you know, Breanna's poem also. It's like this idea of like there is a space, a sexual, whether it's out, exterior or interior, that we all can connect together. And so yeah, so for me it was comics and my great-grandmother.
I gotta say, I brought comics to space with me that I got when I was 13 years old. I kept them all of this time. And I was like, why am I keeping these comics and these trading books? They're Star Wars, so I will say. But I brought a couple of them to space with me because they had such a deep meaning to me from that time as a child.
We're all hyper book, sci-fi, and graphic novel nerds. So we're like, what were these comics? Who did you bring?
I brought some Star Wars comics. I brought some Star Wars trading cards and Star Trek memorabilia that I had. And so,
So cool.
We're here for it. We're so here for it. So there's so much richness in terms of where to go next. But I'll go with going into space, however you define it. So it's like literal outer space, right? Creating spaces for healing, or like visually looking at space for grounding, requires overcoming a lot of obstacles. So how have y'all as Black women created space to get to space as you encountered those obstacles?
I'm going to listen
Does that
to
question
first.
I'll go.
That's
That's a great question. I mean, I think for me, I think this is probably more recent than I can say this has been like a lifelong journey, but accessibility. I've had to learn that I have to protect my energy. That, you know, we live in a time of social media where like everything is like put yourself out there, put yourself out there, put yourself out there. And it just gets to be too much, and it gets to be very, I don't know, like you just get really, you start feeling really exposed. And so I think, especially like, you know, you're supposed to be promoting books, or you're supposed to be promoting your work or whatever. And I just feel like I've had to really be okay with the fact that sometimes it's okay for me not to post. It's okay for me to hyper, like, you know, kind of like go inside, and that's okay. And, you know, and I'm not missing opportunities. I'm not missing out on anything. I'm over the FOMO. I want to be home. I don't want to be in the FOMO. So I think it's really about just protecting my energy and protecting who has access to me.
So important. Well, I'll read a poem that I wrote called Suited. So, and this was before, you know, this was going through the selection process and training for space. And this is Suited. Did I pick you, or did you pick me? Does it matter as long as it fits? Suited to survive the harsh realities of life in time and space. It's the armor needed to thrive in a world that hates. Fabricated to stretch across flesh and bone. Coveted by many, but only gifted to one. A first skin never to be shed. I flex under the weight. Good thing it fits. Because there was a lot of pressure, you know, being the first Black female to pilot a spacecraft. And thinking about, you know, me in that spacesuit, and all of the resilience that I needed to get there, and because it was a long endeavor. I went to space at 51, And so to put context into how long I'd been chasing space and all of the things that I went through as a small Black girl dreaming of being a fighter pilot and dreaming of adventures and all of these things and not having any role models. Dr. Mae Jemison didn't fly to space until I was in my 20s. And then becoming Dr. Proctor and all of the barriers and roadblocks and figuring out ways to go around that. So I think it's extremely fitting that the dragon that I flew to space is called resilience.
100%. And I know there are other responses, but what's the book that you're reading out of?
I self-published my book. It's called Dr. Proctor's Space to Inspire, The Art of Inspiration. And it's a book of art and poetry about, me going to space. And so it just follows all of my journey through the art and poetry that I created along the way. And yeah, it's kind of this thing. It was 2 years in the making. But I found my authentic voice as an artist and a poet. And so it's really been my therapy.
I love that. We're going to come back to that. I have so many follow-up questions, but Angela, Breanna, I want to also give you space. I love the theme of space. I'm going to say space a lot today.
Yeah, I think what I'm starting to learn, because I rushed into so many different things. I feel like, I've had a lot of different lives already, and I am really, really tired. And that's why in the poem that I wrote about the women kikiing in space, there's multiple people in multiple generations throughout the poem who are saying, take a nap, take a nap, take a nap. And I think I will always be thinking about what it means for us to carve out space for the things that we need to not just survive, but thrive. I think about Angel Reese and what she's doing right now and how she is like taking up space and expanding in ways that I just think are so beautiful. So I've thought a lot about how I take up space, how I expand, how I contract, and how I do all of those things for myself. And that's what I kind of wanted my little shoot. It's even in this book. One of my favorite spreads is, and the illustrator of this book is an incredible illustrator named Tanya Angel. And I'm not spoiling the book, but the only words on this are she sleeps.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the little girl who has gone on this big adventure to touch the moon, and the constellation Pleiades, they are, comforting her. And so I think that rest, taking up space, as much space as you need, all of those are things that have kind of pushed me through really tough spots in my life. And I know that Dr. Proctor, you and Angela, that have to understand what it is to often be the only ones in some of these spaces as well, and what that takes out of you to have to journey on a unique path by yourself, and to have to and to desire community but not necessarily have access to it because this journey is yours. You all are first, I know, in a lot of different ways, and that's why I say expand, find space and take naps. Those are probably how I would my three things.
That was beautiful, Breanna. Thank you so much for that. Thank you. Seriously, that was beautiful. I've already spoken.
So much, Angela. I miss you.
I miss you
Sorry,
too.
y'all.
So we have a couple questions. One, I think hopefully their name is pronounced Bouquet. Bouquet appears to be in Turkey. If Bouquet wants to get copies of the books, how does Bouquet get said copies of books?
Of all the
My book is available on Amazon. If you just put in space to inspire with the number 2 or my name.
Perfect. And Bouquet, there is Amazon Turkey, so you should be good there.
And then my book's through Sistah Scifi, so you should just go to Sistah Scifi.
We do ship to Turkey. The rates will be real, but we will ship to Turkey. So yeah, awesome. Okay. Bouquet also is looking for inspiration. They are a physics graduate and looking to pursue a career in science, and everybody's telling them that it is too difficult. So how have y'all overcome people telling you that the path that you have chosen is too difficult?
I don't listen to them. You know, I think that that's one of the things that I've been very fortunate to be able to tune out. You know, because they're there. The people who have told me I don't belong here, you know, that I won't be successful, have counted me out in many ways. But one of the things that I do is you know, that's when the grit and determination kind of kick in, and the resilience of finding a way. Because the thing about it is that there are allies out there. It takes some work and some digging, but you got to find those people who are going to support you and become part of your crew, to help you be successful. And you know, one of the things that I learned was you have friends, but if your friends aren't serving you, are they really your friends? And when I say serving you, I mean, are you inspiring them, or are they inspiring you? And sometimes, you know, I look back at my career and I think about the pockets of friends that I had at different stages of my life, and how they helped elevate me and I helped elevate them through those stages. And knowing that even though I transitioned into a new group or a new crew, they'll always have a history with me, and they'll always be special. But I had to transition into the new crew that served me, and I served them in ways that uplifted us both to, you know, the path that we're trying to achieve.
Mm-hmm. That's real talk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think even though you know, I was talking earlier about having a unique path, and there are parts of the path where you are walking by yourself, but when you are in community with people, even if they're not on the same path with you, they're there with you and they're present. There's this incredible author, her name is Kelly Starling Lyons, and she kept me so inspired and so uplifted. Her, Zetta Elliott, Renee Watson, Tori. Hey, Tori Maldonado is here in the chat. They were not walking my path for me, and they do not walk the same path that I am, but it is with them and in community with them that I am able to continue to go. Kelly's word for this year is connection. And so even if it's just her texting me, how's your heart? That like can shift your whole day. And the question is like, well, what do I do? How do I get through these spaces? I really believe it is community. I think a lot of people as a society, we are really tuned into the individual. And yes, you know, we work, we push, we strive. But there's this theorist, her name is Dr. Cynthia Dillard, and she said, it is through community that our true selves are revealed. And so what I love about what you're talking about, Dr. Proctor, is that there might be people in our lives who are here for a season, but the reason that they're there for the season is something that I wish we all spent a little bit more time connecting to, because there are going to be people who are in and out, but the people who are there when you're down and when you're up, that means something is important. And so when we think about that, I would not have accomplished anything that I have been able to accomplish without the community that I have around me. Because even though I was writing the dissertation, even though I was defending it, it was the power and the energy and the force of love that was behind me that kept pushing. And so, how do you get through these things when people are downing you and saying you can't do it? Belief, but also community.
Mm, mm, mhm, mhm, mhm.
I really don't have that much more to add to what Dr. Proctor and Breanna have said, with the exception of also look at the people who are trying to tell you you can't do something and what are they actually doing. Because I've been in a lot of different industries, I've done a lot of different things, and the people who have told me that I can't do something are the people who aren't doing them themselves. So I would also say, most of the people are just trying to talk and they're not actually walking the walk. So you can totally, disregard those people. I'm also going to use something that I learned from Miss Breanna, which is, some things, like, you get into situations and they're facades, they're not real. And people aren't doing the real work. They're not doing the real, they're not doing the real thing. They're just kind of pretending. And everybody's path is different. And I know it's really easy when you're trying to make something happen and you really want something so badly that you will start to prepare yourself and you'll try to mimic and copy the journey and the path of somebody else, but that's not your journey and that's not your path. And so you have to find your own journey. You have to find your own way. And I think all of the things that Dr. Proctor and Breanna had said kind of cultivate and go into that. Who are you surrounding yourself with? Are there people who are lifting you up or pulling you down? The help of your family. Like, who are the people in your family that are supporting you and in your ear telling positive things and not negative things? So I really think it's important to, again, look at the people who are trying to tell you you can't do something, and B, just trust in yourself that if this is something that you really, really love and you really, really want to do and nobody can stop you from doing it, that's the thing that you're supposed to do.
Mm. Yes, that one. So I think we're kind of at the midway point, so I'll stop for a quick PSA. Please follow all of us. We're all on Instagram. There's a white arrow here-ish where you can follow Sistah Scifi, Angela, Breanna, and Dr. Proctor, and follow up all the cool things that are happening in the universe. We are officially happy to be your flock. So with that, my next question is, that was so insightful about how connections in your peer group and your community being such an amazing symbiotic resource. Y'all all did amazing things in the middle of a pandemic. How did you find the community to make those things happen? Publish books, literally go to outer space. Why y'all think about that? Phuket says y'all all have invitations to Turkey. I don't know Phuket, but I felt like it was in the chat, so I felt like I should share that with
you. So I think I really learned. I think a lot of people think that writing, and we have, writers here, so y'all can talk, share. But I think a lot of people think that writing is something that you do by yourself. And I learned through the pandemic, or through the height of the pandemic, especially, that writing is not a solitary space. For me, I am inspired by people. I'm inspired by, by my family. My nieces and my nephews are some of my biggest muses. My dog is my muse. And so when I was trying to write during the pandemic, during the height of the pandemic, at home by myself, I was like, oh, I don't know if this is going to work. But I came out of the height of the pandemic with like all of these different stories written, because people really started tapping into these virtual spaces. And for me, going to like virtual happy hours, I was like, this is not real. Uh, but then it became real. The conversations were so real. Like, you know, people are behind their screens, but there's a rawness that people are willing to share in these spaces. And so what it was like for me was really starting to explore this, you know, this technological space where connection virtually became really, really important as a writer. Um, and so that's what happened for me.
Mm, mm, mm. That's so rich.
I'm not gonna lie to y'all, I did not write that much during the pandemic. I it was my creativity hit an all-time low.
Mm-hmm.
But what I learned from the pandemic as a writer was that like I needed to stop beating myself up that I wasn't writing, meaning like at the computer or pen to paper, that there were other things involved in writing that still constituted as writing. So that meant researching, reading, you know, watching movies, but really critiquing the narrative and the storytelling that was happening. It meant sometimes even just staring at a wall and like daydreaming about an idea that I had, even if I didn't have the energy to write it down. So I really had to refocus, you know, what the expectations of myself were as a writer, and give myself some grace that we were in an unprecedented time that was mentally like so mentally heavy on so many different levels, and that there just wasn't room or space for me to actually sit at a computer and put words on a screen. I just couldn't do it. But coming out of that now, I have a lot of ideas and I have a lot of productivity, so it's great. But also, again, it helped me to learn the idea of like, it's okay just to sit and not do anything. Like kind of back to Breanna's point about resting, that's an important part of the writing as well, or anything that you do, not even writing, just anything, is that you have to give yourself grace sometimes, that doing nothing is doing something. And so that's what I think the pandemic really taught me, and I'm grateful for that.
Mm-hmm. I just want to, yes, and like the Bully Go came out in 22. So my guess is at some point in the pandemic, you were writing that.
I was revising at that point.
Okay.
And
Okay.
yeah, so because I wrote it in 2019 is when it was, actually, no, I started writing it in 2016, 2017, around there. So it was acquired in 2019. And then I had to slog through some revisions. It was rough, y'all. It was real rough slogging through those things. But it was already written, so you know, again, but I had to give myself grace that was part of the writing, right? That was like, even though I was just moving stuff around, but I wasn't writing anything new. How about that? There was no need for
the need revision is right, but okay, yes, and Dr. Proctor, how did you find your community and achieve big things? Because you are literally going to outer space in 2021.
Oh, well, yeah. It was interesting because, you know, we went into lockdown in March of 2020, which happened to be my 50th birthday. And going into lockdown, you know, all my travel plans, everything came to a halt. And I was locked in my house with my now ex-husband. I got divorced in 2020. So 2020 was rough, y'all. But I like to say that I got divorced and went to space. But you know, finding a way to cope with that was the art and the poetry. And I'm an introvert by nature. So being able to be in my room with my books and art supplies and things like that was a form of therapy during that hard time. But also being able to share what I was doing, because I didn't consider myself, if you had told me 3 years ago in 2019 that I was gonna become a space artist and win a seat to space by writing a poem, I'd been like, you're crazy, I'm not an artist. And so I started in 2020. You know, there was a couple of things that were going on, getting the divorce. I had to move out and move in with my brother, who I hadn't lived with for 30 years, you know, and in his room. I had a room in his house, and he took me in, and, you know, there was a lot of like financial disruption and all of these things happening. But I started doing collage art on postcards. I was making postcard art and sharing it with people. And people online were like, "Oh my God, I love your postcard. I love your art."
Wait,
You
look
know,
that one up because that one looks
yeah,
adorable.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all look
this is
adorable. I
Artemis
mean, sorry.
Rising, so it's my tribute to going to the moon, and you know, about Black females never being like the first choice to, but the whole idea of like finding, and luckily I got support. I was doing this and buying supplies and sharing my art online, and people were like, wow, I really like what you're doing. You know, how can I support you? And I started a Patreon, and I started doing these things, and people were like, yes, you know, I want your postcards. And that really was the fuel that enabled me to go, because I had a small group of people who I sent postcards to every month in the mail, and I had to create new art. I put art on one side and poetry on the other side, and sent this mail out. And I was like, oh my goodness, I have to create art to send out to my Patreon supporters. And that literally got me through my transition of getting divorced and living with my brother, and then finally getting, you know, back on my feet, getting my own apartment in January of 2021. And then February of 2021 is when Inspiration 4 contest was announced.
Wow.
I put my submission in as an artist and a poet, and in March of 2021, I found out I won and went into training, and then 5.5 months launched into space later. So
Wow,
it was
that's
all
so
pandemic, and you couldn't get hurt, you couldn't get hurt, you couldn't get sick, you couldn't get COVID. It was, I was like,
I have a question. I have a question.
and I'm
I have a
becoming a mission
question.
pilot. And I'm like, you know, and I kept saying, all right, I told my students that you should be a lifelong learner. You're never too old to learn something new. And I was like, I just had my flashcards, and I was working it, trying to learn all these terms and all these things to become a systems engineer. And but did it. Can't take it away, because we did it. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Dr. Proctor, can you walk us through what it is like to go to space? Like, I want to know I want the play-by-play. What is that like?
It's the most amazing experience, because you know you're in this amazing rocket built by humans in this tiny capsule with your crew members. And I'm helping my commander with monitoring the flights, and the flight computer and my screen and all these things, and mission controls talking to you. But the countdown clock, you're wondering, are you going to scrub or not? Are you going to blast off? And I get down to about 10 minutes. I'm sitting there and I'm like, all right, we're doing this, And I had been chasing space for my entire life, and people asked me if I was afraid, and I was like, no, I was so ready. I was so afraid that it was going to be taken away from me, because we know there are people out there just looking for you to fail or do something so that they can take that away from you. And I was like, oh, I can't mess up. Can't mess up. So by the time I got strapped into that rocket, I was like, light this sucker up. We are going to space. And then we count it down, and the thrust pulls you back, and you're so happy. That little girl inside is like, I'm working on the flight computer, but I'm inside. You're just like, this is the best. and then you get into space, and you get through the second stage, and you're literally in space in your hands. You're like, and then you get to from mission control, they'd say, okay, you can unstrap and, get out of your suit, and you unstrap, and you're like, wait a second, this is amazing, and you're living in space for the next 3 days. And the best part, I like to say, is when we got up into the cupola and got to see the Earth. And so this cover on, that's the Earth behind me. And on my face is Earth light, the light from the Earth. And so it's like moonlight, but only more spectacular, more gorgeous, beautiful, stunning. And it just captivates you to be able to sit there and see, be bathed in Earth light. And then you come home and you're like, no, it's too soon. I can't come home. Like 3 days isn't enough. You know, like SpaceX, we have an issue. I don't want to come home, but you come home.
But go back. So what did you do during the 3 days? Like, when did you wake up?
We
What did you have for
slept,
breakfast?
we ate, we did a lot of medical stuff. And in fact, if anybody's watching and want to learn more, we have a Netflix series called Countdown Inspiration 4. It's a 5-part docuseries that follows us in near real time, from selection to splashdown. But I will say splashdown was my becoming moment. I felt that weight come off my shoulders, you know, Phoenix rising. And post-space life has been awesome.
Listen, if you want to co-write a book with myself and Breanna, we three of us can write a book, because I feel like little girls, especially little Black girls, need to hear that experience.
Well, you know, one of the things that I do want to do, and I'd love to talk to you more about that, is the poem I wrote, Space to Inspire. I think that is the perfect, you know, children's book, because it really encapsulates, you know, what I was thinking about us and the future that we can create together if we strive to create that Jedi space, that just, equitable, diverse, and inclusive space, not just outer space, but here on Earth, the space we inhabit, the space, you know, in our homes, in our communities, in our schools, and, you know, all around us. We should be creating Jedi spaces.
Yes, I'm here for this book. I think it should happen. And I mean, like, I know this is going to sound like hubris, but Sistah Scifi Wind Down Wednesdays is the space where ish happens. So, like, I'm excited.
If you have
2025, we're going to see this kid's book.
hit me up. If you have any, I will help you. I will give you resources, whatever you need. I will. I'm sorry, Breanna, I talked to you. I spoke to you, but
Much appreciated on that.
So, since we talk about writing, let's talk about publishing, because y'all each write and have published books, but took very different routes. So, like Dr. Proctor, you self-published. Angela, you're with HarperCollins. Breanna, you're with Simon & Schuster. I got that right? You're with Simon & Schuster?
I have a book with Simon & Schuster. I have a book with the Nee Milner book. And Penguin Random House, Dial Books, and Holt Books right now. So they're kind of all over the place.
You got lots of publisher relations. So and Angela, all your books are with HarperCollins. Did I make
the first book, You Look Up to the Sky, I self-published. And I have 2 with Harper and 1 with Viking Books for Kids.
Who's the parent company for that?
Penguin Random House.
Okay. So tell me, how did y'all pick, 1, self-publishing versus major publisher? How'd y'all make that decision? And 2, when you made that route, like, then which publisher, or like go-to-market strategy and all that kind of stuff? So it's a 2-for-1 question.
Well, I'll go quick because mine's easy. I know nothing about publishing, so self-publishing was easiest route to go.
Okay.
And time-wise, I just, you know, I wanted to get this out. And so I actually found a small publishing company out of Canada that was a friend of mine who had self-published his own books. So I worked with him to do this. And from the moment I emailed him to publication, it was 3 months. And so it was fast. But the thing about it is, you know, I don't know if because this is a collection that is eclectic is the best way to put it. I don't think it would have ever gotten picked up by a traditional publisher, because it's not a traditional themed book of poetry or art. It's kind of a mismatch of me and 2 years of my life that, And so to me, it was really easier to self-publish at this stage.
Okay. I never published anything. I just have to make an observation. It's ironic the woman who got to space was like, I don't know if I could have gotten this book published by a major publisher. But that's just my observation. I don't know that much about the publishing industry. So
Well, I'll give the cliff notes. When I decided that I wanted to write children's books, I had written, again, if you look up to the sky, like I said, was based on something that my great grandmother said. And so again, like to Dr. Proctor's point, like I didn't know what I was doing. So I had a bunch of friends who had friends who had published. And so they were so kind and nice to do informational interviews with me. So I had 5 who had traditionally published and 5 authors who had self-published. And it was funny because across the board, the 5 who had been traditionally published had said, I really wish I'd self-published my first book because it was the most personal story. And you know, like when you traditional publish, you as an author, like you don't have really a lot of creative control. So you're not picking the illustrator, you know, you're really kind of beholden to the publisher and the editor. And that's why it's really important to have a good editor that you have a good relationship with. So self-publishing for me, that first book, was so important because I wanted to make sure that it conveyed a lot of things, you know, again, like having the main character be a Black girl that looked like how I looked as a Black girl, and in spaces where, you know, she was taking up space, like we talk about taking up space, and this relationship between the grandmother and the daughter. So there were just nuances that I wanted to make sure came across very clearly. So self-publishing, it's similar to Dr. Proctor. I found a great publishing a press that helps authors self-publish in Minneapolis, Minnesota, which is where I'm from originally. Shout out to Beaver's Pond Press. They're amazing. And so that's how I self-published that first book. And so then after that, I decided to try traditional publishing just to see what that experience was like. And I happened to just land a great agent who I have a great relationship with, and we sold some books. And so, but really, I like having the opportunity to, you know, sometimes your stuff doesn't sell. Like sometimes your stories just don't sell, and I still wanted to have that door open that I could self-publish if I wanted to. And so that was an agreement that I have with my agent. So I think I'll continue to do self-publishing, but for right now, it's just been that traditional publishing has worked out in a weird way.
Okay, yay.
Yeah, so I met my first editor. We were in a master's program together. And I had decided that I wanted to continue with my education beyond the master's. But I was also writing at the same time. And I sent her my first book, Hands Up. And that was in like 2015. And it is a direct allusion to Hands Up, Don't Shoot. And so I wasn't sure that anybody was going to touch it. The first drafts really didn't have a ton of hope in it. And it was a picture book. And one of my friends was like, you have to put hope in it. And I was like, why? And she was like, this is a picture book. I found hope and kind of pulled together this book, which has now been banned lots of places. So hope didn't do much. No, I'm just kidding. Hope is still important. Hope is still important. But I had sent it to my friend, and like 2 years later, she reached out and was like, hey, girl. And I was like, hey. And she was like, I think we can really work on this. And we worked on that book so much because there's so many references that are colloquial and, you know, trying to just build out the story. And we got it published, which was scary because didn't know that if it was going to get published. Like, even though she was working with me on it, she had not bought the book. So, you know, so Angela's laughing because I am working like week after week, month after month on this book that has not been bought, and didn't know if she was going to be able to sell it because of, you know, what the book was talking about. But then she eventually bought it. And then it was another 2 years before anybody showed interest in Impossible Moon. But Janine bought it, and she brought together these beautiful artists. And then it was another year, and I wrote this book about 2 sisters having a fart contest, and had a lot of my friends that were like, this is hilarious. Nobody like one of my friends, I was like, you being a little too real. You could back up a little bit. She was like, you know, they don't like Black kids laughing. And I was like, and she was like, Black joy and Black humor for Black kids. She's like, those are two different things. And on the edge of me, like, having just done some submissions for a new, like, really funny kind of potty humor book that I just wrote, and all of them being rejections, I'm thinking a lot about what she said back then. But it's been a process of you write and you wait. You write and you wait. And while you're waiting, you also have to kind of be writing and have new ideas. And I think that's one thing that I didn't realize before I went into this, into this passion for writing. I was like, okay, so I write a book, and then what? I go on tour. Laugh, Angela, because you know how funny that is. I go on tour. It's amazing. I sign books. No, it's write, wait, write. And so I've never self-published. I haven't done that journey yet, but I have been so encouraged by the folks that I know who have. Zetta Elliott, like I said earlier, some of her books are, you know, all of her books are incredible. She has this fantasy novella about Black mermaids. Oh, one of my favorite
So good.
books ever.
So good.
So there's just these amazing stories that exist out there. And I always try to leave people with this idea. If you want to publish, however you want to publish, remember to write and be able to wait, because those are two big things that were a part of my experience and still are a part of my experience.
Sure. Dr. Proctor, do you have light?
I was gonna say, can I turn on my light?
Yeah,
I'm losing
please.
light here.
Because I was like,
Yeah.
it's disappearing acts. Like, that's a whole different offer.
Okay, so I only have 2 more questions. Yeah, I have time for 2 more questions. So the first of the 2 questions is, so one of the quotes from Parable of the Sower is Lauren Olamina's like, the mission of Earth's seed is to take root amongst the stars. And I was like, in the start of this book, you ain't got no running water. You talking about taking root amongst the stars. But I loved it. I was here for it. So my question for you is, what is your vision for Black women in taking root amongst the stars?
Is that for all of us or just me?
It's all because, you know, there's literal stars, there's metaphysical. Yeah, so I'll. And whoever wants to go first can go first.
I will just say, because I'm on Twitter way too much, that I just want to shout out Angel Reese again. I love her so much. And I feel like when you're talking about rootedness and you're talking about shooting for the stars and being rooted in the stars, the way she pushes back against everybody's respectability politics, everybody can get it. And I'm like, yes, give it to them, girl. That is what she is, a vision to me. To me, she is a vision, because I don't know if I've ever been that brave. I don't know if I could ever be that brave. And it's not a brave who's like, oh, girl, you're so brave. It's like she's not there for anybody but to celebrate and to love and to connect with herself and the community, the people that are really there with her. And I think that is a different type of courage than what I've seen in a while. And I believe I think she's a vision of being rooted in the stars. I know we probably could have said something. I should have said something more of Shaq. Dang. Okay. Oh, well.
No,
Angel.
yeah. I mean, there's no shoulds in this space.
Okay.
As my therapist likes to say, don't should yourself.
Right. 100%.
I love that.
I think I would say that for me, what that means is that if you look, if you look up to the sky and you see all these stars, the message that I get from that is that there's room for all of us. That you can lift each one of us up and you can find a place for every single one of us. We don't have to fight for space. And I think that that is something that can also be equated to here on Earth. There's room for all of us. And so that's what being rooted in stars for me means.
Love it.
I will, of course, give you a poem. This is one of my collage art pieces. It's called Windows of Opportunity. And so I'll read this to you. Windows of Opportunity. I beckon thee to see all your possibilities revealed through me, filled with wonder beyond the known. I am the future you must own. Across black space you must go to embrace the color that fuels your soul. Unlimited realities you'll see in me, a passage ritual to set you free. So when I think of that, looking up at the stars, I think about windows of opportunity, that there are, or doors of opportunity. You just got to walk through them and take advantage of them, and don't let people stop you.
Yes, yes, yes. I'm here for it. So I actually am really bad at time. So I'm gonna scratch the second question. We're gonna do a quick round of this or that. It'll be 3 questions. The way this or that works, some of y'all probably already know. I give you 2 options, this or that. And then rapid fire, you pick the one that you want, that. And then you say why. Sound good? Any questions? Okay. First, this or that. Black Lightning or Luke Cage?
Say that again.
Black Lightning or Luke Cage?
I can go Black Lightning, and the only reason is Cress Williams. Yes.
That's a good reason.
Scooter
That's a good
from
reason.
Living Single all day. All day.
Yes. That's a great reason.
Black Lightning.
And
Oh, I'm like Luke Cage.
that's fine. I'm not going to hold it against you. I'm also Black Lightning all day, every day, for all the reasons. But
That's fine. Next one. Eartha Kitt Catwoman or Holly Berry Catwoman?
Eartha Kitt Catwoman. I'm sorry.
I gotta
Eartha
go
Kitt
Halle
Catwoman.
Berry, because I think she could play me in my Lifetime movie.
I'm here for it.
That
I'm
part.
here for it. Right. I can see it. I can see it.
I would say Eartha Kitt just because when she growls, it's like perfect. It's perfect. I've never heard anyone who could talk and purr and be like, they thought they were really doing something with that new Cats revival that they did, but no, Eartha Kitt. Eartha Kitt.
Here for the purr. I'm here for it. So this is the last question. Get grounded. Michael Burnham, Star Trek Discovery, or Uhura, original Star Trek?
Uhura, original Star
Uhura.
Trek.
Her original Star Trek.
I'm sorry. I when I saw the first episode of Star Trek Discovery, I cried. I had a bike when I moved to Cambridge to start school. They bike a lot. I bought a bike. It was silver, and I named it Discovery Episode 3 because at the time that was the name of the bike, Discovery Episode 3.
That's so great.
I just never thought I would see Michael Burnham. I'm sorry. I know. But I also had moved. My mom was the one who introduced me to Star Trek, and she had moved into the newer, generation of Star Trek. So I didn't get that exposure. And then when Michael Burnham came, I was like, wow.
And that final season, she kept it. Michael Burnham. I'm sorry.
I'm also seeing Michael Burnham. And then the love
None of these were
season
easy.
3. Huh?
None of these were
Yeah,
easy.
that was meant to be hard. I think the hard one because I gave y'all that one.
This was so amazing. I could do this all day, but I'm sure y'all got, stuff to do, art to make, books to write. This is great. Can count me as part of your community. I'm happy to support however we can. Dr. Proctor, we got to get your books in more places than Amazon, like maybe Sistah Scifi. Breanna, I have an email to you, so let's kiki and collaborate on a possible moon. And that's all I got. This is amazing.
Thank you for having me.
Thank
This is
you.
fantastic.
Yes.
Wait, Isis, you want to tell people about the Independent Book Day?
Oh, yes. So quick announcement. Sistah Sci-Fi is hosting two Sistah Sci-Fi Author Expos in celebration of Independent Bookstore Day and Independent Bookstore Weekend. So the first one will be April 29th here in Oakland, California at Oaklandia Cafe and Bakery, where we'll have all your favorites for all the ones who can come and it works for their schedule. Independent, Black and Indigenous speculative fiction authors, and Angela, even though she's not 100% independent, offering their books, selling their books. We'll have story time for the kids. It'll be great, and of course we'll have coloring, reading, and games, because that's how we do it for the sci-fi. And then we'll do the same thing in Seattle the next day. It'll be great. So yeah, I'm excited about that, and it'll be one of my first times celebrating Independent Bookstore Day in person as opposed to doing something virtually. So yeah.
Let me know more details.
Oh yeah.
Yes, for sure. My heart just skipped a beat. Yes, it's coming. Okay.
Bye everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks for everything.
Thank
Good
you.
to see you all.
Bye.